Hi there, freshmen. It's Ms. Matthews. For today's block, you are participating in a writing workshop. So it's time for you to get started or continue working on your final reflection, in which you tie together Fahrenheit 451, How to Break Up with Your Phone, and the COVID-19 pandemic experience. So I have the whiteboard here so you can kind of see the little mind map that I had in the first video, and that is posted to Schoology, so you can refer back to it. But I've also added the next step for today's writing workshop, okay? So if you follow these steps, you should have a pretty good idea of where you're gonna go from here. Now, if you've already started writing and you have a solid handle on it and you know where you're going, you don't have to necessarily do these steps. But if you're stuck and you don't know where to begin, this might be really helpful. So the first thing you wanna do is you want to choose your audience and you wanna choose your conflicts, okay? And you're going to start with a couple. Choose a couple conflicts, right? Because you're not quite sure which one is going to work out. So your audience, remember, you want to decide who you're writing for. Who do you think can learn from your experience? Is it other teenagers? Is it parents, educators? Who? And then select a couple of conflicts and ask yourself, why is this conflict important to this audience, right? It needs to be something that your audience is going to care about. And if you're looking for the list of those conflicts, it is attached in Schoology to the video about the final reflection. So you'll see that video, and then below it is attached a copy of the mind map and then a copy of a document that lists all the conflicts that we've been discussing throughout Fahrenheit. Once you kind of can answer the question about why these conflicts are important to that audience, you want to brainstorm with those few conflicts to kind of sample them out, to give them a test drive. And you can use the mind map here on this portion of the whiteboard to help you do that by going through and answering those questions. And the main things you want to look for as you're test driving the conflicts are, can you find evidence, right? Can you find a lot of evidence to support these conflicts, to show that these conflicts exist? Can you find characters and events in Fahrenheit that represent the two sides of the conflict? Do you have a lot to say about it? Do you personally have an opinion about this conflict? And is your experience relevant? Is what you've been through throughout reading these two books, going through the breakup and going through the pandemic, is part of your experience relevant to those conflicts? So you want to kind of ask yourself, can I hit all the marks? Can I find evidence from all three of those areas? Right? If you can find a lot of evidence in Fahrenheit, but nothing in breakup, and then you're really stretching to connect it to your own experience, then it's not going to work. You want to find a conflict that is well represented in all three of those spheres. And then finally, once you sort of decide on a conflict that you can find evidence for, you have a lot to say about it, and is relevant to your experience, you want to start to mind map to organize your ideas. You don't have to write this in a certain order. You can start wherever you want. You can start with Fahrenheit 451 if you want to, or you can start with a pandemic, or you can start with the breakup, right? It's more like a story and less like a literary critical essay, okay? So think about at what point in the story you want to start to tell it. Do you start with the conflict right out? Like, here's the conflict and here's why it's important. Or does the conflict sort of appear as you start to tell your own story about the pandemic, and then flash back to how you read Fahrenheit and did the breakup, right? So you have a lot of freedom and creativity there. So as you're working on this, there's not a required live meeting, but I will have an optional live office hours. So I will create a meeting and I will be in there and available if you want to pop in and talk about your pre-writing, choosing your conflict, choosing your audience, whatever. I'm there to help. Okay, so get started, get writing, and I'm excited to see what happens.